A huge class action lawsuit was filed yesterday against a lot of the promoters of FTX. I have not read the complaint, nor have I talked to any of the defendants, and so I'm making this video just reacting in real time. I think this is an interesting case, and we're going to react in real time to reading this lawsuit. Full disclosure, I am friends with Meet Kevin. I am really good friends with Graham Stephan and Andre Jick. Jaspreet Singh, I've never met. I've never talked to Brian Young. Jeremy Lefebvre, I am friends with him. Tom Nash is one of my closest friends on YouTube. We've both been friends since I think we were both under 5,000 subscribers. Ben Armstrong is someone I'm not friends with. That's BitBoy Crypto. Erica Kohlberg, I've been friends with her for a few years now. We used to do mastermind calls in 2020 before she blew up on TikTok. And Creators Agency is the agency that gets my sponsorship deals. And I'm friends with all of the people involved with that agency. So we have a class action lawsuit. Edwin Garrison, I didn't do any research into this complaint, but I did see that there was another lawsuit. It looks like he's sued SBF as well. I did see down here at the bottom that there's an expert report attached as Exhibit A that we'll go through later. So the class action lawsuit, plaintiffs filed this complaint on behalf of themselves. What I'm guessing is going to happen is this lawsuit, this complaint is going to get filed, and then they're going to start advertising for other victims, because I see here only one victim, Edwin Garrison. I'm assuming there's going to be many more. And once they start advertising this, I'm sure that many will start showing up to this law firm. And I'm pretty sure that's how class actions take place. All right, so the intros. FTX disaster is the largest financial fraud in U.S. history. It surely is probably one of the biggest stories that'll ever happen in my life, for sure. Former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried facing numerous criminal charges. Yeah, that's an understatement. I think SBF is in a lot of trouble. He's in much more trouble than anyone on YouTube. This action may be one of the only avenues for any of the victims to recover any of their damages. I'm hoping that a lot of the money is recovered from all of the alleged losses. I saw some news stories where maybe multiple billions have already been found. That's the hope. I hope victims get most of their money back. That would be the best case scenario. However, I have such low expectations, because once lawyers get involved, and I saw some story the other day that lawyers have already made $5 or $10 million or $15 million just in pursuing the whole scandal. And so the lawyers are going to be the ones who take most of the money away from the victims. Plaintiffs bring this action against YouTube and social media influencers and promoters who give financial advice to their millions of followers. If you add up the amount of followers for the defendants in this case, it's definitely tens of millions. It's a lot of people. Though FTX paid defendants handsomely to push its brand and encourage their followers to invest, defendants did not disclose the nature and scope of their sponsorship and or endorsement deals, payments, and compensation. I'm really curious to see what the courts decide between how much you have to disclose, because to my knowledge, all of the defendants in this case disclosed that they were being paid to promote FTX. But I've seen before that there might be some type of legality or legislation on having to promote or having to disclose how much you got paid. I think that might have been in the Kevin O'Leary case. That's going to be really interesting to see, because I think the Ethereum Max case, Kim Kardashian didn't get hit with a charge because she said it was an ad. I think it was because she didn't disclose how much she was paid. And I wonder if there's any correlation to this case. A new multi-billion-dollar cottage industry of influencers has been created. Evidence has now been uncovered that reveals influencers played a major role in the FTX disaster. What's unfortunate is we can't actually look at who caused the most damage or who influenced the most amount of money to go on the FTX platform. What I've been arguing all along is that I believe there are people and entities outside of this specific case that influenced way more in damages and way more in people putting their money on the platform. That is just an opinion of mine based on I believe they had a lot larger reach. However, it will be really interesting. What I'm fascinated to see is if FTX could ever give away, if there was a way of seeing the code, of seeing how much was actually influenced and where they believe most of the influence came from. FTX could not have arisen to such great heights without the massive impact of these influencers. There's no question that there was a lot of influence from all parties involved, everyone who got paid to promote FTX. This is a way of doing business in 2023, is you pay people to influence. It's been around forever. We've never really seen it like social media, where you have that close relationship with your audience. I don't know if we'll ever know all of the deals and who got paid what and how all of the money distributed, but it'll be interesting to see. Who hyped the deceptive FTX platform for undisclosed payments ranging from tens of thousands of dollars to multi-million-dollar bribes. It's interesting that they use the word bribes here. In the footnote, I was thinking that there might have been mention of how much influencers were paid, but it doesn't appear to be the case. The law merely requires the named plaintiffs to have suffered damages as a result of A, purchasing an unregistered security, and B, that was promoted by the defendants for their financial benefit and or financial benefit of FTX. Now, B, of course, is true because people were paid to promote it. FTX was obviously doing so to make money. What I'm fascinated to see with this case, and it seems to be anything with crypto, is if you promoted an unregistered security, that is going to be an absolute nightmare for the defendants in this case. I think it seems like that's going to be the central point of this, of their argument, is that this was not an unregistered security. And I imagine the plaintiffs are going to want to, they're going to want to argue that it was. According to studies, those aged 18 to 34 are more likely to build an interest in an investment specifically from social media instead of traditional news websites. Absolutely true. We're already seeing this. I think YouTube is the new TV. It is already where people, especially in their youth, are going for investment advice, and they rely on a lot of us influencers. I'll include myself in that. They rely on all of us to hold out their best interests, essentially. And unfortunately, in this situation, a lot of people were damaged. Both the 11th and 9th Circuits have already recently entered opinions that specifically social media posts and mass communications are sufficient to state a claim for soliciting the sale of unregistered securities. I thought it was interesting they included the Cardone Capital case because I don't think that one's settled or finalized. It's going to be really interesting to see where that one goes. But it seems like this might be a massive case to set precedents for what is an unregistered security or not, and specifically promoting through social media. Literally overnight, plaintiffs lost their assets held in their YBAs on FTX's trading platform as FTX imploded and filed a Chapter 11C bankruptcy petition in Delaware on an emergency basis. SBF, charged with numerous counts of fraud, money laundering. At least 3 of SBF's cohorts pled guilty to conspiracy, other criminal charges related to their scheme to defraud its investors. I am fascinated to see where the courts believe the liability is. I've always argued that it's on SBF and their actions, and I'm just really interested to see where this goes with discovery and what the defendants in this case are able to find, what the plaintiffs are able to find, because I'd imagine if they could prove that SBF was behind all this and he was the guilty party, then would all the liability be on him? I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know exactly where the liability will be for the defendants if they can prove that SBF was acting maliciously or acting guilty of money laundering and fraud. I think that seems to be another crucial point to this case, is SBF the main culprit in this? Is he the one guilty party, him and his 3 cohorts? That's what I've been arguing all along, and we'll see what the courts decide. Burgeoning cryptocurrency industry. The scheme resulted in FTX investors collectively sustaining billions of dollars in damages. I am so thankful I stayed away from crypto. It seemed like such a huge, risky industry to get involved in and promote in any capacity. And billions of dollars in damages. I think they've already proven that there's been billions of dollars in damages. So, that seems already factual. Here are the parties. Edwin Garrison out of Oklahoma. He funded his FTX account with a sufficient amount of crypto assets to earn interest on his holdings. It's interesting that they don't mention the amount. He did so after being exposed to some or all of defendants' misrepresentations and omissions regarding the FTX platform. He executed trades on the FTX platform. There's another plaintiff, Greg Podolsky. Okay. Oh, there's Skylar Lending. Oh, wow. I had no idea there were multiple plaintiffs. Okay, so there's already multiple plaintiffs. I imagine there's going to be, realistically, there's probably there could be tens of thousands, maybe even more, of people damaged in this FTX scandal. Okay, I'm reading right here. Wow, there's a lot. I'm not seeing a listing of the amount. So I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's already 7 plaintiffs. The defendants all admittedly endorsed and promoted the sale of the FTX YBAs, and none of them disclosed in any of their YouTube and other social media posts that they were paid hundreds of thousands and or millions of dollars by FTX and profited from the sale of FTX YBAs in clear violation of SEC, FTC, and various federal and state regulations. Yeah, I'm assuming they're going to admit that they endorsed and promoted the sale. You've got video footage of that. None of them disclosed. They definitely disclosed that they got paid. I would hope. I don't know for sure. So I imagine the plaintiffs are going to go through all of the videos that they've seen and try to find one instance of not disclosing that the video was a paid ad or it was sponsored in any way. That would open the defendants up to even more liability. I'm not too sure about having to disclose how much they were paid, because here there's mention of they didn't mention that they were paid hundreds of thousands and or millions of dollars. I'm really curious to see what the law dictates on having to disclose how much you were paid. Here's a list of the defendants. You probably, if you're watching this video, I imagine you're familiar with all of them. Meet Kevin Graham, Andre Jaspreet is Minority Mindset, Brian Young, Jeremy's Financial Education, Tom Nash, Ben Armstrong, BitBoy Crypto, and then Erica Kohlberg. Defendant Creators Agency is a talent management firm and digital ad network which promoted FTX. I'm really interested to see Creators Agency liability on all this because they get me sponsorship deals, and I'm incredibly thankful for them. They do a great job with me, and they're simply just an agency that goes out and talks to the brand and sends the deals to the creators. I'm really curious to see their liability in all of this. This court has subject matter jurisdiction, class action for a sum exceeding $1 billion, exclusive of interest and costs, in which at least one member is a citizen of the state different than their defendants. $1 billion. Oh my God. $1 billion. It's going to be really fascinating to me to see how they're going to prove $1 billion in damages from the defendants in this case. Now, we know there's more than $1 billion in damages, so I don't think that number is ridiculous because I think there's pretty much proof out there that it is multiple billions of dollars in damages. But what's fascinating about lawsuits is you have to prove that it was these defendants and not the other defendants. Back in 2017, the SEC warned that if YBAs are found to be securities, persons who promote them may be liable under state and federal regulations for 1, promoting an unregistered security, or 2, failing to properly disclose their payments and compensation. I find that really interesting that they include that you need to properly disclose payments and compensation because to my knowledge, pretty much no one on YouTube discloses how much they get paid for the sponsorship deals. And again, it's talking about an unregistered security. I don't know the law on crypto being securities or not. This seems to be the central point of this case, because if you can prove that FTX was a security, this case is going to get really interesting for all the defendants, both in this case and the others that involve celebrities. I opened this other page up because this was mentioned in the lawsuit. It was about the ICOs. Back in 2017, during that ICO craze, it seemed like the SEC was really going after the ICOs. I think most of those were pretty much scams. They were the initial coin offering for those who aren't aware. And I think that was during a period where a bunch of people were just rushing in and starting an ICO for some crypto coin that was going to change the world, and they all became scams. I don't know its relevance to this case. I'm definitely going to be following the case, so we'll see. I'm really interested to see if there is any similarity. To me, the ICOs seem to be like you actually raise money to start a project, whereas FTX was just a service, a platform where you could go and buy and sell crypto. SEC and state securities regulators over the past 5 years have already found liable numerous celebrities, similar to FTX, BlockFi, Voyager, and Celsius. Seems like they're making the argument that FTX with that, I think it was 8% guarantee, it seems like all of these brokerages are all getting lumped one in the same. It seems like they're making the argument that the defendants promoted the 8% side of the platform as opposed to just the platform itself. Plaintiffs' claims arise from their purchase of and investment in FTX's YBAs, which FTX marketed through defendants as a type of savings account that every customer who signed up for the FTX app received by default, in which, as explained below, was guaranteed to generate returns on their significant holdings in the accounts, regardless of whether those assets were held as a legal tender or cryptocurrency. This is the fascinating part. To my knowledge, no one promoted this side of FTX. They were just promoting the platform itself. I'm not an expert on the FTX platform to be able to differentiate the two. To my knowledge, and my whole argument the whole time was based on promoting the platform. If the plaintiffs can prove that the defendants in all of these cases were promoting a platform and then promoting essentially the unregistered security of you can make guaranteed returns of X% by putting your money on this platform, that is where I think this case gets really, really fascinating, and the liability for the defendants might be going up exponentially. That is the narrative that defendants pushed in promoting the offer and sale of the YBAs, which are unregistered securities. I haven't seen any promotion of that specifically, but I don't know every single promotion that all of the defendants did. And so it'll be interesting to see if plaintiffs can find those videos, because I think if they can find anyone that promotes, across the spectrum of people that are involved with FTX, anyone that promoted a guaranteed return, they are going to be held liable. And it's going to be interesting to see the court's separation between the unregistered security of this guaranteed return versus just promoting a simple platform. They then give a quote of the new CEO of the failed FTX. "Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here." FTX, I think, is going to be one of the most interesting stories of 10 years. I think we still have documentaries being made on Bernie Madoff because of how interesting and how intricate, how layered that story was. I think we're going to see something similar where FTX is still talked about 10 years from today, maybe if the crypto market evolves and becomes something actually like really important in our day-to-day lives, it's going to be fascinating to see if this was the start of more regulation, or just if it's going to be a story that kind of never leaves us, similar to the Madoff story. The losses associated with malfeasance in the cryptocurrency sector are growing by the billions almost every day. I was saying a year or two ago that crypto was such a risky endeavor, was such a risky thing to get involved in, and I just saw so many new investors getting involved in crypto with the hopes of getting rich, knowing that the whole thing would collapse. I was trying my best to make videos saying stay away, and unfortunately a lot of people still got involved. And it was certainly, I mean, to the plaintiff's credit in this case, there were a lot of people promoting crypto across all social media, both the defendants in this case and also across all the social media. Crypto as being this next new thing as a good investment. It's been really unfortunate to see how many people have lost billions of dollars. This is by far the largest securities national disaster, greatly surpassing the Madoff Ponzi scheme. I've seen numbers that Madoff was bigger in terms of damages. I think it was like 65 billion. So I'm interested why they think that it is greatly surpassing the Madoff Ponzi scheme, because to my knowledge, that was much bigger in terms of damages and impact. But I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll be able to see as FTX fully plays out, we'll be able to really compare which one was worse. While the existence of such loans associated with assets deposited to yield-bearing accounts was known, the substantial risks associated with such loans, and by extension the yield-bearing accounts in general, was not adequately represented. In my eyes, and how I view this whole industry, is it seemed like as everything was on fire, as everyone was making billions of dollars, these platforms, FTX being the most notable, they were taking the money that was getting deposited on their platform, and they were taking it and going and loaning it out elsewhere. Well, when everyone's making money, when everything goes up, when the line goes up, and everyone's making money, you look like a genius. When you take customer deposits and you go lend it out to risky investments and everyone's making money, it's like, oh, your customers are making a bunch of money. No one can lose. Unfortunately, we've seen it in many markets before. Once the dominoes start falling, once the first couple dominoes started falling in the cryptocurrency market, all of a sudden, all those risky loans, the risk showed itself. It reared its ugly head, and all those great returns that people were getting all of a sudden went to zero, and you saw the whole market collapse. To my knowledge, FTX never disclosed what type of risk they were taking with customer deposits. And I'd argue that if they were making that publicly known, I would like to think that all of the people promoting FTX probably would have stopped promoting it. The main functional differences between banks and cryptocurrency exchanges is that exchanges are largely unregulated and that exchanges are subject to a lot of additional risk compared to that of a bank account. That seems to be my interpretation. I mean, the way I see it, whenever I go to my bank, the money's always there. It's kind of ironic saying that right now as some of these banks are failing. But in my experience, my money has always been in my bank account. In the cryptocurrency exchanges, you always believe that to be the case. But it seems like the industry was taking everyone's money. Like multiple of these brokerages were taking customers' money and going and leveraging them elsewhere and not disclosing that to their customers. Other than by an exchange's own terms of service, which FTX violated, exchanges are not prevented from investing customer assets elsewhere. This is one of the risks that existed that we're unfortunately seeing unfold right now, which is the FTX, we're following our own terms of service, yet they were going and loaning their money to incredible risky asset classes that ended up losing everyone's money, but there wasn't any regulation on it, which is one of the reasons why I've stayed away from crypto. I just felt like the risk was always there. It always felt like there was a chance that it could just all crash, and then what happens? And unfortunately, we're seeing that right now. There is an extensive track record of cryptocurrency exchanges that have shut down and ultimately failed, often in spectacular fashion. Yeah, it seems to be a domino effect where once one falls, they all fall. And then it lists off five typical reasons for failure: borrowing against customer assets, lending them to generate profit, leading to insolvency; trading or leveraging assets in an effort to generate a profit, leading to insolvency. Yep. Hack or theft by an external actor, embezzlement, or just disappear suddenly. To me, these risks they were always there with crypto, which is one of the reasons why I just never wanted to participate. The risks, unfortunately, are always there. So even when you're investing, it seems like times are good and money's being made. At some point, the risk is going to show itself. And we've seen that with the crypto space, and it just seems like an absolute disaster. FTX quickly became one of the most utilized avenues for investors to purchase crypto. Up to $10 to $50 billion expected. That is so much money. Where did it all go? At his peak, Bankman-Fried was worth $26 billion. That is so much money. Now, of course, that is all paper wealth on an asset that eventually imploded. But he's got to be one of the most interesting rise and fall stories. There's going to be a lot of documentaries on him probably the biggest fraudster in my life. I mean, that I can think of. Bernie Madoff was '08, which I was just starting college. But now that I'm an adult and understand the financial space a lot better, Bankman-Fried, and this has got to be the biggest fraud story of our life. Alameda borrowed assets from FTX's customers, providing FTT tokens as collateral for these loans. This is where it all kind of becomes a Ponzi scheme, where you're taking something that's essentially worthless. FTT tokens are by nature worthless. There is no value to an FTT token. You just created it out of thin air, and you're providing collateral for all of the risky loans that SBF and whoever else is guilty, what they were doing with FTX customer money. Looking back, it's like almost, oh my gosh, the whole system was so rigged against all of the people putting their money on the platform. After suffering large losses in the wake of several high-profile crypto firm failures in the spring and summer of 2022, Alameda borrowed from FTX some of its customer assets. Some have suggested that the loans were made for free. The whole industry just ended up toppling over. Like once one firm goes down, then another, because they're all lending to each other. It's going to be really interesting to see all of the well-made documentaries that are made on this subject, because to me, like looking back, like the way all of these people operated, they should be in jail for fraud. FTX saw an estimated $6 billion in withdrawals over the course of 72 hours, which was basically a bank run. The value of FTT plunged 32%. Should have been zero all along, because all of those little altcoins were useless in my eyes. This chain of events was entirely foreseeable to those who were aware of FTX's relationship with Alameda and their respective dependence on the purported value of FTT. I've always thought about where's the big capital groups. From the start, I imagine they had everything set up correctly, right? I don't know. I'm just some ignorant YouTuber that's just seeing this from the outside. I mean, I'd like to think that all the people putting hundreds of millions and some were allegedly billions of dollars into this platform, that they were able to look at the books and the company structure and how they were allegedly running their operations to see that it was legitimate. Look at Coinbase or some of these other places. What separates Coinbase and Binance from FTX? I don't know. I'm not an expert in the crypto space, but I would like to think that the people putting billions of dollars into this company would have seen from the start if it was such an obvious scam from the start. So it seems like that the operators of this business committed fraud, and they were the ones who turned this into essentially a Ponzi scheme. SBF faces over 100 years in prison in connection with charges predicated on his lying to investors and stealing billions of dollars in customers' money. I hope he goes to jail. I mean, in my eyes, I think Bernie Madoff, SBF, these people are some of the worst people on the planet to take this much money. I mean, billions of dollars in damages. I mean, there's so many people that were damaged by this. It's just so unfortunate to see like one guy's decision, his greed and his stupid behavior and decisions to leverage customer money to then go invest in risky asset class like crypto. And then it all topples over and you lose all of it. And then you plead not guilty and you try to pretend like you're the victim. They then mention the Securities Act and how Congress, painted with a broad brush, recognized the virtually limitless scope of human ingenuity, essentially all the schemes that we can concoct to essentially get money from others on the promise of profits. Again, this always goes back to, did the defendants in any of this, in any of the FTX promotions, was there any mention of guaranteed profits? If there is, it seems like that is a security, and that's going to be a lot of liability. In 2017, the commission looked at the DAO, which sold approximately 1.15 billion DAO tokens in exchange for a total of 12 million Ether over a 1-month period in 2016. They applied the Howey test to the DAO tokens and concluded they were securities under the Securities Act of 1933 and Exchange Act of 34. That's really serious. I think the FTX, if the 8% we know is a security for sure. I'd like to think that it applies here, that if you were promoting, you can guarantee 8% returns on FTX. I think that is a security and you'd be held liable for the damages. In September of last year, apparently Gensler gave a speech reflecting on the flexibility of the securities laws and how they apply to cryptocurrency. He noted that of the 10,000 different cryptocurrencies in the market, the vast majority are securities. Again, I think the FTX was a security. The 8%, the guaranteed return side of it absolutely was a security in my eyes. Now they're going into the FTX's offer and sale of YBAs. There's mention on the website that the first $10,000 value in your deposit wallets will earn 8% APY. Above 10,000 up to 100,000 will earn 5% APY. That seems pretty clear to me. I think if you're promoting that, that is promoting an unregistered security, which the liability for this case is going to be really, really high. Nowhere on the website does FTX describe how this yield will be generated. When the line's going up like it was in 2021, when everyone's making money in the crypto world, no one seems to stop and ask questions. Applying Howey to the FTX Earn program reveals that Earn is an investment contract. You're deploying customer assets in a discretionary manner. Efforts of FTX are instrumental in generating the user's yield and the expectation of profit because they're advertising yields of up to 8% APY. I think this is a pretty easy case for the EARN program, specifically the EARN program, to be an unregistered security. The FTT token that contributed to FTX's demise is also an investment contract per the Howey test. FTT token is the exchange token created by FTX that entitles holders to benefits on the FTX exchange. This seems really important. This seems to be a really important case to determine what exactly in the cryptocurrency space is an investment contract and which is a security. So any lawyers watching this, if you want to add in the comments, I would love to learn because I'm pretty ignorant on the subject. They then go into what the FTX platform was. My perception was always that it's just an exchange where you can go, you buy cryptocurrencies, you sell and trade them. It seems that they're making the argument that it kept all of the crypto in a common pool used to fund undisclosed and unreasonably risky investments. At the time, I never promoted FTX, thankfully, and so I never did like due diligence on what exactly the platform was. I don't know if anyone really knew what FTX and Alameda were doing with the funds. In litigation and in discovery, this is the stuff we're going to find out. And that is, I think, the most interesting part of all of these cases is to really unravel this story and figure out who knew, who didn't know, what was being done to customers' money. Because in theory, a platform itself, in my eyes, at least my perception of what platforms are and all the people I've talked to in the crypto world, is just simply a place where you go and buy and sell crypto. There's nothing scammy about a platform. It becomes a scam or it becomes a Ponzi scheme or whatever whenever the operators of this business are taking the customer monies and then they go and lend it against other cryptocurrency assets, against their terms of service and against what the customer's expectations were. Alameda borrowed assets, they provided the FTT tokens as collateral, and then they engaged in margin trading, essentially borrowing money to execute risky trading strategies. These trades were secured by the assets Alameda had borrowed from FTX customers' accounts. This is so hard for me to read because this is just such obvious fraud. It's just such a horrendous situation. This is anyone who understands finance can look at this and just understand that anyone who's participating in this type of behavior knows that at some point it's all going to come crashing down. After the CoinDesk report came out on November 2, 2022, CZ of Binance tweeted that Binance was planning to sell off all of its holdings of FTT. The interesting question I have for people who really understand this crypto world is, there's a main argument right now, which I understand it's like it was so obvious that FTX was a scam, it was a Ponzi scheme and all this. I'm willing to listen to arguments, but Binance, CZ of Binance, he clearly owned FTT tokens and he believed in the company as well. Now, at some point he didn't when maybe he had more access to the company's books. I don't know what exactly happened there, but this guy, I would assume, knows crypto as well as anyone. He runs his own platform, and so for him to believe in FTX up until November 2, 2022, I'd love to know what he knew or what he didn't know, because if he believed in the platform itself up until then, I trust him. I mean, just from an ignorant perspective on an outsider, some guy who doesn't follow crypto all that much, CZ seems to be an important figure in this crypto world. If he didn't know that FTX was a scam, how would anyone else know? From its inception, cryptocurrency has been fueled by illicit activity, and the crypto sector continues to be rife with crime, frauds, and scams. Yes, that is why CoffeeZilla and I have had plenty of content to make over the last couple of years. FTX's paid endorser program was clearly designed to use the positive reputation associated with specific YouTube and other social media influencers to convince consumers that FTX was a safe place to buy and sell cryptocurrency. FTX's brand ambassadors had a critical role in portraying FTX as being safe and compliant. No argument for me. I think there's a lot of truth to that. That's why brands come to us, is we have a relationship with the people that follow us. And unfortunately, if we promote something that damages them, it's going to hurt our reputation and it's going to look really bad for us, because a lot of people trust that we, when we say something safe and compliant, the words used in the complaint, that they're trusting us. And unfortunately, in this situation, a lot of people were damaged. The plaintiffs then proved that defendants, they all basically posted videos apologizing for their participation in promoting FTX, essentially admitting guilt in the sense of they are admitting that they promoted something that turned out to be a huge fraud scheme. They say that Meet Kevin, upon information and belief, received $2,500 every time he mentioned FTX in one of his videos. That seems to be a pretty fair rate. I think that's probably pretty accurate. If you think about it, you're doing 10, 15, 20 reads a month. It's a lot of money you can make. This is unfortunately why most lawyers say just not to talk about anything that happens wrongly, is unfortunately a lot of times it can be used against you in court. Finally, after FTX's implosion, the Financial Times reported that FTX held talks with Taylor Swift to sponsor the singer's tour for more than $100 million. I had no idea. I'm reading this for the first time. $100 million. Oh my gosh. So this is kind of my argument from the jump, is that, you know, these celebrities are getting paid this much because brands feel that they can make more money than they pay. Obviously, that's how business works. And so Taylor Swift getting sponsored for $100 million, that means they believe that she was going to generate over $100 million. For her sake, I'm kind of glad that this thing imploded before she promoted it. I'm not a fan of her. I don't know her, of course, but you know, just her reputation at large. I mean, can you imagine if she would have gone on tour for $100 million and it would have kept the scam going for another, however long, maybe another year, and then all of a sudden she would have been involved in this and the numbers would have gotten out. Oh my gosh, her whole brand. Think of how lucky she got. I'm just, oh man, I can't imagine avoiding such a disaster. Making $100 million, of course, would have been amazing, but I mean, there's no way you would do this if you knew that you were going to end up damaging all of your fans. So she escaped a bullet, didn't she? Some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment have either invested in FTX and or been paid to serve as brand ambassadors for the company. They then mentioned Tom Brady and his ex-wife, Giselle. There's no doubt that those two influence people to, you know, sign up. But I totally get it. The argument, I've always agreed with the argument CoffeeZilla made, which is people go to social media, they follow certain financial influencers for financial advice. You don't go to Tom Brady for financial advice. You go to people on YouTube, or a lot of people. I assume the plaintiffs in this case are they're gonna allege that they went to, you know, social media for their financial advice. But everyone was influential in this. I think Tom Brady might have influenced more than maybe some of the influencers on social media, but there's no doubt that everyone had influence to some degree. And I'm going to be really interested to see how much influence each party had. The classes are comprised of thousands, if not millions, of consumers globally to whom FTX offered and or sold YBAs. This is going to be a massive class action. My guess is once this gets filed, I assume that many people are going to start reaching out to the law firm, and we're going to see thousands upon thousands of people show proof that they lost money to FTX. And this thing is going to become an absolute disaster. I think this lawsuit is going to be massive. This is going to be a massive case that's going to take years, maybe 3 or 4, maybe more years to unwind. We've now reached the end of all the counts of this claim. Oh man, I hate lawsuits. I've spent 21 months and almost $250,000 on mine. It is an unfortunate circumstance for every party involved because, of course, in this case, you have the plaintiffs who lost money. So they're damaged, they're upset, they want to be recouped of what they felt like they were defrauded. Then, of course, you have the defendants. They're going to spend, I mean, if I said $5 million, maybe $7 million, it could reach multiple millions of dollars just to defend against a case like this. And you definitely don't want this to go to court because in my eyes, in my ignorant eyes of the law, because I'm not a lawyer, I couldn't imagine wanting to go to court and you have 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people represented on one side saying, we all lost money because these guys over here promoted something. And the jury is sitting there looking and going, oh, well, these guys over here, they make 7 figures a year turning on a camera and they just make YouTube videos and make all this money and they promoted this thing and all these people lost money. I don't think it would be good to go to court. And so this is going to take a long time to litigate. It's going to be years of stress. I know you guys are going to disagree. I know you guys are going to be upset. You're upset at this whole situation, but I have a lot of empathy for both sides. As a defendant in my own case, this is the worst experience of my life. Unfortunately, in this case, you have people who lost money and then people who promoted something that they don't believe was a scam or a fraud scheme. And unfortunately, you're going to have years and years and millions of dollars to litigate this. And who wins? Lawyers. Lawyers are the ones who win. Lawyers are going to be the ones who take all the money, all the money that should go to the victims. The lawyers are going to take. It's the same thing with with what's going on with SBF and the FTX at large, is the lawyers are taking all the money. I had to look this up because I was curious. This new CEO, John Ray, charges $1,300 an hour. In February alone, his compensation was over $300,000. So he's not even the lawyer. He has 240 billable hours just for the month. Sullivan and Cromwell, the main law firm working on the case, billed a jaw-dropping $16.8 million in January alone. Oh my gosh. $15.4 million in December. They've already racked up $32.2 million. Another big expense comes in the consulting firm. Their invoice came in at $12.3 million for the same month. They've already racked up $50 million. So I want you to be just as upset as I am. You have people that lost a lot of money in this case. So much money was lost. And you have lawyers that just within 2 months are already at $50 million. And to my knowledge, you're not even in court. Oh my gosh. $50 million. This is the problem I have with all these lawsuits. And unfortunately with these situations is this money should be going to the victims, the people that were defrauded. But no, they're going to all the lawyers. They already have an expert report listed as an exhibit, Cypherblade Blockchain Investigation Agency. It is a 20-page report. Seems like it was really well done. Looks like pretty solid evidence that the EARN program was essentially, it's going to be argued that it's a security. So what's my real opinion? I think if anyone promoted a security, an unregistered security, if you promoted that you can guarantee 8%, this is like my thing all along, is all of these crypto tokens promoting guaranteed returns, and you could life-changing money. But in this specific case, FTX, if you're promoting guaranteed returns, I think you're open to massive liability for unregistered securities. Even though I'm friends with all of the defendants in this case, I don't know what they promoted or what they said. There could be an instance of them promoting 8%. And as much as I hate to say it, if you promoted a guaranteed return of an unregistered security, I have a feeling that you're going to be held liable for damages. And in a case like this that is $1 billion in damages, then I think this is going to be a really, really ugly case. What's going to be really interesting for me to see is how the plaintiffs are going to figure out where the damages were caused. What is I know with something like investing, how do they specify, and I'm just speaking out loud here, how do they specify it was, let's say, a financial YouTuber that really pushed them over the edge and got them to invest? Did they make the decision to invest off some TV ad and then they saw someone promoted on YouTube and were like, oh, I'll use their code so they could get a little cut? That's going to be really interesting to see is to divvy up who was guilty or who should be held liable for the damages that the plaintiffs incurred. Is it, did they only watch one video on FTX and sign up and it's allocated to that one person? I think I mentioned it at the beginning. I have not talked with any of the defendants in this case about this complaint. I'm really curious to see if they all come together as one and all become co-defendants with one attorney. I think they're going to need a really powerful attorney. I really hope, and this is just me thinking out loud, I really hope, knowing some of these guys, I really hope they don't go the path of bargain shopping. This is going to be a very, very big case. It is one that is going to have a lot of plaintiffs. We're talking $1 billion in damages. I really hope, I know Erica was a lawyer, is a lawyer, might still be a lawyer. I really hope she advises them really well and they're able to find a really powerful attorney to defend them, because they're going to need a really, really good law firm to defend them. This is a massive case, and I think it can get out of hand if they're not careful. Do I personally think they're liable for any of the damages? I don't think so. My stance hasn't changed all along, which is if they just promoted a platform and didn't know it was a fraud scheme, if they never promoted the EARN program, which I'm under the perception that they never promoted the EARN program, then I would find it difficult to have them have all the liability placed on them. Certainly $1 billion in damages. Were there damages? Of course. These are all influencers who influence people to sign up into something that people lost money. I'm fascinated to see how they allocate the damages. I don't believe there was $1 billion in damages from all of the people in this specific case. I'm going to be really interested to see discovery and where the plaintiffs go with this and finding out how much damages were allocated to each party in this complaint, each defendant. I don't know the numbers. I'm guessing it's significantly lower than they realize. I do know that Tom and Jeremy both had their contracts cut because they were not influencing the amount of people, and I'm pretty sure they've made this public. They were getting paid $50K a month. Their contracts got cut because they were not influencing as much as their contracts cost. So, I mean, in my eyes, I think that gives you an idea of how much they were influencing. The other guys, I have no idea. It's going to be really interesting to see how they allocate the liability for promoting the platform versus the EARN program, because, again, if they've promoted the EARN program and a guaranteed return, you could have real liability. And if one of them did it, all of them did it, none of them did it, I'm not too sure. This is going to be a really long, drawn-out case that's going to be really interesting for guys like me who find legal battles fascinating. It's really unfortunate you have a lot of people that have lost money and they're coming to recoup. This was a different style video. I never really make this style, so I hope you enjoyed it. This is a really fascinating case that I'll certainly be following. I'm friends with most of the people, most of the defendants in this case. I feel for them because I think it's going to be a really expensive case, one that might very, very, very much change their lives. I'd be curious to see how much insurance covers. I know Meet Kevin just bought a private jet. Probably not the best timing to add such a massive liability to your life, because the legal bills are going to be very expensive. I think these guys are going to spend, if insurance has a cap, or if insurance doesn't cover it, you could be talking $500,000, $1 million, which is going to drastically change their lives. I've been involved in a lawsuit, and I know how much it's changed my life. And so I feel for all the parties involved, because you have a very unfortunate circumstance where billions of dollars were lost by a lot of people who trusted, the people that were influencing them to sign up for a cryptocurrency platform. We'll be following along. Thanks so much for watching.